Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching, we are now about to describe Rahu and Ketu placed in the Nakshatra of Uttara Ashadha. Thank you for watching. My name is Dustin Cormier. If you let me know if you're enjoying this, let me know in the comments, and if you really dig my work, feel free to go to dustincormier.com/subscribe, where you can receive emails. You can get a free copy of my eternally free ebook. It's a little short story, psychedelic short story. And as well, you can check out my work that's coming. I'm going to be producing books, and I'm going to have out there eventually an astrology book where I convey my own idea of Tropical Vedic Astrology. If you want to see when that's happening or just to get in touch with everything I'm doing, it's dustincormier.com/subscribe, where you can subscribe to my website email list. So let's dig into our interpretation of Rahu and Ketu falling into Uttara Ashadha. If you're watching this, I've made a video where I convey the whole narrative of Uttara Ashadha as a nakshatra, as its information comes from the Nakshatra sutras of the Taittiriya Brahmana. So this is where my information is coming from. And most of this data, I'm flowing with what we've read from Vic Dicara's Nakshatra, the authentic heart of Vedic astrology, as we can see here. And Vic Dicara has conveyed the nature of this nakshatra as relating to being a conqueror and producing superiority. As well, we could even say a superior master of something, leaning on their mastery, their skill, their reputation, and their forceful leadership in order to guide a group, a group think tank, an organization, or even a whole global movement towards specific goals, attainments, and objectives. This is really the nature of Uttara Ashadha. It's a Jiva nakshatra, so it's good at being sensitive to global trends and using its sensitivity to global trends to apply intelligent strategic force towards the expansion of a movement that it's a part of. And the Uttara Ashadha person, especially when the moon and ascendant is there, tends to be a leader in this regard. If the Amakarak is there, if the Lagna Lord is there. Now, when the nodes are there, it's going to have a specific energy to it as well. The nodes are a very important part of our evolutionary narrative. Rahu and Ketu both signify the felt pieces of the soul that have been somewhat fragmented. And in our lives, we operate unconsciously through Ketu up till about age 36. And at age 36, we begin to integrate. We begin to really go into Rahu. Age 36 is when Saturn matures. The Navamsha chart begins to really come into its full bloom. And once Saturn matures, we have a stability that allows us to carve into the unknown jungle grasses of the North Node. So if your North Node is in Uttara Ashadha, at age 36 is when this is going to really come to the fore. If your Ketu is in Uttara Ashadha, then you've been this sort of person who's been wanting to conquer, whose bread you feel is buttered on the side of being a conqueror, a leader, a pioneer. And now you need to get out of Ketu and start integrating Rahu in the nakshatra that Rahu is falling into. In this case, it would, of course, be either Punarvasu or Pushya. So you need to use the Rahu in Punarvasu or Pushya, wherever it's falling for you, to integrate Ketu. So let's focus for the moment on Ketu in Uttara Ashadha. Now, Ketu in Uttara Ashadha is particularly one signification that Vic Dicara gave as having some difficulty, particular difficulty when it falls in the Nakshatra of Uttara Ashadha. Rahu does better here. Rahu magnifies Uttara Ashadha's power and ambitiousness. Now with Ketu, the tricky thing with Ketu is that Ketu has this funny divine confrontation with the human ego. The thing is that the human ego has one foot in Ketu's nakshatra. The other foot, in some ways, is in the etheric, absolute connection of consciousness beyond time, where our souls are already existing in nirvana and have been liberated into moksha, where we all sit in samadhi at the end of time. Because samadhi is both the source and exit of creation, of the soul. The soul sits in samadhi, and in order to love itself, it bounces out of samadhi in order to come back in. You know, this is me being poetic. God is excited to look away from its lover's face because of the sweetness of looking back at its lover's face. This is the meaning of the soul coming out of samadhi and into samadhi, and out of samadhi and into samadhi. So Ketu has come out of samadhi, and it's moving back to God. That's what we're all doing here. Now, Ketu is, again, a deep part of this person's nature is to be Uttara Ashadha. But Ketu is going to force you over time. The funny thing about Ketu is that we think we're it. We think we've mastered it. It's smoky. I often use this metaphor with Ketu, where it's this divine, it's this pizza. Now, it's almost like this false pizza, where we want to eat the pizza so badly. We have this dream. We've been dreaming about this pizza. So what we do is we shred a bunch of cardboard and put it on a plate. Then we cut off some pieces of paper, computer paper. We drop it on the cardboard, and that's our cheese. And then we slice little pieces of an eraser, and then we use that as our little bacon bits and our pepperoni. And we bring it all together and we chew on it. And we're like, yep, this is this thing I've been searching for. And we're chewing it, and we, in our minds, it's like, I am this thing. I need it so badly that this is what it is. Now, what happens is that over time, if we are walking, we walk past a pizza shop and we whistle through the graveyard because we smell the pizza. We're like, oh my God, that's what I truly am. I can't face that. I'd be so embarrassed to know that I've been eating this thing for so long. It's not even pizza, and it's who I am. I am the pizza. I am this pizza. But you're going to tell me my whole life I haven't been actually doing it? And we can't take it. So this is the narrative of Ketu. And this is what happens. Hi there, Anna. And hello there, Robbie. Nice to see you guys live here. This is the narrative of Ketu, is that we think we have it, but our unconscious compulsion causes us to not actually really have it. In the same way, Ketu, because the Ketu and Uttara Ashadha person, their identity is so wrapped up in the superiority that they go around pushing it on people when they're very young, and they expect that it's going to come naturally to them. And what happens is that they don't get it early in life. And because of that, Ketu dissociates them from this dimension of their nakshatra. So what Vic tells us is that of all the planets, Ketu, see, we read with Uttara Ashadha again that there's this narrative of a person who's an evolutionary agent who's trying to convey the will of the gods. but you are still a human, and you still have your human ego, and you still have to be accepted by friends and loved ones, and you have to compromise sometimes. Certain planets are going to be able to just do the leadership thing. Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Rahu specifically can do this masculine leadership energy, and there's not much trouble. But other planets, Uttara Ashadha becomes, they're not anybody's peer, and it becomes hard for them to be a team player. Ketu seems to be the most difficult planet, or graha, in the sign of Uttara Ashadha. It tends to indicate a fear of and withdrawal from challenges and leadership opportunities. It's almost like they have this intuition that they're this special leader, which makes it hard for them to have peers and to be a mutual peer. And they distrust their own capacity to lead and to conquer. So Ketu in Uttara Ashadha is burning themselves at both ends. They don't get to feel like a natural equal. And, Uttara Ashadha, they feel superior, and this puts them in positions when it's doing healthy. This puts them in positions of superiority, where they're not in touch with the common folk, but at least they get to be superior. And at least they get to transmit the will of divine, which is what their soul is here for. And at least they are themselves. You might have the whole world in resistance to you, but if you are being true to your divine nature, that doesn't matter. It's what you're supposed to do. This is when Uttara Ashadha is at its best. Is that it's a superior officer and commander. They have a hard time relating to normal humans, but at least they're being themselves. With Ketu here, you have a hard time relating as a peer, as an equal with others, and you have a hard time facing, because ever since you were a child, you've been trying to come into this superiority, and the world has resisted you, and you were so young that it gets pushed and obliterated out of you. So now you don't even trust this nature of yours to be a superior person. And life, you might hear this video, and you read into it, and it causes you to, now I want to try. Now I'm going to try to be superior. And the world is always going to push your head down. This is the nature of Ketu and Uttara Ashadha. But there are lessons there. You have to, sometimes as astrologers, we have to point out the fact that you're like Sisyphus, who rolls the boulder uphill, and then the Titans kick the boulder down and said, good, do it again. Good, you piece of shit, do it again. Keep going, you piece of shit. Sometimes, that's just me being a Scorpio, I guess. Sometimes the universe, you have to understand that Sisyphus was granted a golden opportunity to purify and glorify his spirit. And the universe is not calling him a piece of shit. The universe is saying, you're so lucky that you get to work out your karma. And that's what Uttara Ashadha with Ketu is doing here too, which is basically, there's never going to be a complete feeling of security when it comes to this balance between being a divine messenger and having a regular human ego. You're never going to feel like I'm fully done the superiority thing I'm supposed to do, and I don't feel fully happy as a mutual peer amongst my friends and loved ones. Now, at age 36 especially, your Rahu is going to start to come into the fore, and that means that you are going to have to begin to balance the nature of your Ketu in Uttara Ashadha with your Rahu. And Rahu, when Ketu is in Uttara Ashadha, Rahu can be in one of two places. It can be in Punarvasu, or it can be in Pushya. Now, by this time, hopefully, I've made videos describing the Rahu and Ketu in these signs. And you can read a little bit more into the Rahu in those positions by checking out those videos. Essentially, with Rahu and Punarvasu, Punarvasu is most welcome where fresh enthusiasm for new ideas is welcome. But it's unwelcome where long-term commitment and patient tenacity is needed. Punarvasu's whole sutra means the eternal rebecoming of Aditya needs to make the old and dry fresh and new. Vataha is dried out, stale things. And then Ardram makes things moist, fresh, and new and vital. So with Rahu and Punarvasu, there is a constant need to learn to be in the returning cyclical freshness of life, which means the Ketu in Uttara Ashadha is going to get stuck on things. It's going to have these ideas, these goals, and it's going to identify with them, and things are going to fall out of your life. This is what Rahu and Punarvasu indicates, is that you're going to constantly be letting go of things, and this is going to eat away at your ego identity as a person who was supposed to conquer. I was supposed to do that goal. I was supposed to win that thing. I was supposed to do the Uttara Ashadha, the eternal, unfailing, undefeated conqueror. Now, Punarvasu, Rahu, is going to force you to be a little bit more wiggly, to be a little bit more, to have a little bit more juice, a little bit more fluidity and elasticity, and to grow, to identify your Uttara Ashadha conquering soul, not with any particular form, but it's going to grow to teach you that the real thing that you're looking to conquer is moksha, is your own soul, your own coming into your own identity in your own inner nature and truth. And which means that the forms of conquering are not as important as realizing the inner conqueror. And Punarvasu is going to do that by forcing you to let go of completing this mission. It's going to almost force you to have new intuitions that cause the long-range goals to lose their taste, to lose their venom, to lose their snap. And that it might even cause you to let go of a lot of things that you've tried to build, but you have to let go of them. That's what Ketu does, is it forces you to let go of things in order to be with the heartfelt energy of the present moment. Punarvasu is going to teach you to be in the flow, to let go of what no longer works, what no longer serves you. And throughout your 40s, Rahu in Punarvasu is really going to force you to be someone who is juicy, who is not so dry or stale. Ketu is really going to be a key dimension of your staleness. You have to let go of what you thought you were supposed to complete and conquer in order to get into the flow of what life in this present moment, the good feelings, the juice, the support around you, the opportunities that are in front of you. How do you move and flow with these so that your true, deepest objectives can emerge in your unconscious? You won't let go of everything. Hi there, Mo. Nice to see you. You won't let go of everything. There will be long-term goals that remain with you, with Ketu in Uttara Ashadha. But the Rahu and Punarvasu is going to cause you to flux and move with them and dance with them. Now, Rahu and Pushya, the idea of... Now, let's talk about Rahu and Pushya with Ketu in Uttara Ashadha. With Rahu and Pushya, we read, the success of the master advisor needs tongues for the aspirant. Tongues can mean tongues of fire. It means tongues of spirit. It means tongues of intuition. The Holy Spirit, the flaming tongue of the Gnostic Gospels of Christianity. Pushya has the deity of Brihaspati as its lord. What this means really is that when you have Rahu and Pushya, it's likely that your Ketu ego, the ego of Ketu in Uttara Ashadha, has ideas of what it's supposed to be doing with its life, with its goals. And those ideas, because Ketu is in Uttara Ashadha, it means you're very far away from the Rahu point. You've been so sucked into the point of the nakshatras where Uttara Ashadha is, that your soul is very far away from integrating Rahu in Pushya, which means that the soul's Ketu energy has become stale and dry and bloated with what we would say is egoic ideas. Really, to roll with our pizza metaphor for Ketu, the dry, stale, the false pizza, which we called the unawakened version of Ketu. You're eating this cardboard pizza. It's got paper and it's little pepperonis made of eraser. You're chewing on that. And that's your egoic, unevolved idea of how to conquer life, of how to defeat your soul. Of all these things that I've got to do, I've got to conquer, I've got to prove to everybody. Especially Ketu can be, I have this pressure that I'm going to fail all of my loved ones if I don't prove to everybody that I can be someone special, that I can do something special. And all of this has nothing to do with your true soul. Now, how do you find then what is truly inside of your soul? The best way to do it, when you have Rahu, when you have Rahu in Pushya, what you've been neglecting is to listen to wisdom. Whatever that wisdom means for you. If you are watching this video, I'm sure that you probably feel an open doorway to the ancient classical literature and Sanskrit sutras of Vedic lore. And so someone with Rahu in Pushya is probably inclined to explore jyotish, perhaps, Vedic, the lore of the Vedas, of the nakshatras, and the wisdom of Brihaspati, which is Guru, which is basically the best thing for you to do with Rahu in Pushya is to be amenable to some kind of guru. It depends on good advice. And Pushya is really a gentle, feminine, nourishing nakshatra, symbolized by flowers, milk, and breasts. So masculine strict planets can indicate the malfunction of being at odds with teachers and guides. There's a hesitation to follow a guru path or a higher education due to feeling insufficiently educated, under-advised, and ill-informed. Especially you've got Ketu and Uttara Ashadha, which means you've been pushing, just use raw aggression in order to try and conquer your life without listening to the wisdom of higher-ups, being subordinate to a larger organization of knowledge. So be careful of Rahu in Pushya, can be skeptical of guides, which may have rational cause but needs to be realistically resolved. Feminine planets like Venus, Mercury, the Moon, and even especially Jupiter do well in Pushya. Rahu has a raw hunger to get the wisdom. I just want to get this wisdom so I can use it for my Uttara Ashadha ends. So when you turn 36, you might find that your Rahu is waking up and saying, I need to break out of my ideas of how I thought I was supposed to use Uttara Ashadha, of how I thought I was going to conquer my soul. And now I need to branch out and find ways of using Rahu in Pushya, of using my teachers. Hey teacher, I need you to, it's like going to a doctor and saying, hey doctor, I need you to stop my nose from bleeding. The doctor's like, why is your nose bleeding? You're like, I don't know, do you have any plugs? Just give me some, just let me shove some plugs up my nose just to stop this from happening. You got any like cotton? The doctor's like, dude, we gotta figure out why your nose is bleeding. Let me tell you, the student, what is wrong with you. Don't come to me and say I need this specific information. Let me tell you what you need to hear, or else don't waste my time. Get out of here. But this Rahu and Pushya has these problems. Goes to a teacher and says, hey, I need you to teach me this specific thing. And the teacher's like, I'm not going to limit myself and you by limiting my art. It's like a painter, come to a painter, at some level you'll be like, yeah, I want this thing. But ultimately you want to let the painter or the tattoo artist have their flow. And when it comes to the art of being a guru, you got to give them the rope to explore of how they want to teach you and what they want to teach you. So Rahu and Pushya has to be careful not to use the teacher, but to truly let go of their idea of what they thought their life's destiny was supposed to be. And this will involve a lot of feeling like I'm failing. I'm failing my family. I'm failing whatever I've built up to age 36. Because remember, Ketu has a hard time in Uttara Ashadha. So it has this whole ego of trying to conquer something, trying to conquer itself. It's not until age 36 that they just fucking completely let it go. Stop trying to conquer and be subordinate to the will of a guru. And this is what finding a balance here. You know, even Rahu and Pushya might find themselves getting bad gurus. People who are going to challenge you to be objective about your guru. Because in the end, you've still got Ketu and Uttara Ashadha. When you get to be in your 40s, you might find that a person, if the Rahu Lord is doing well, if you've got a good Saturn, if the Ketu Lord is doing well, if you've got good masculine energies, if you've got a good Jupiter, then this could be a person who could be a teacher's best student because you know how to question and challenge and conquer the superiority of your teacher in the long run, but while also being submissive and respectful while doing so. So that the teacher knows that you are a good student because you're not following the teacher. You're following the path that the teacher followed. You're surrendering to the teaching so that you can become an even greater teacher in the end, which allows you to be a greater conqueror. So, but if you're 36 and even going into your 40s, it's very likely that your best thing for you to do is to be humble and subjugate yourself to the will of the higher knowledge. Then when you get into your late 40s, Ketu will mature and come into, how do I now use the guru energy that I've absorbed to do the conquering that I want to do? That's the best way for us to convey Ketu in this sign. I spent a lot of time on it. I'm really fired up today. I've been resting a lot, so I can tell this is good. I feel really good about this, but I've spent a lot of time on it already. Let's take a look at Rahu in the sign. Let's now take a look. This is me doing this so I can later put the timestamps in my video. We are now going to look at Rahu in the sign of Uttara Ashadha. Now, we've just talked about Ketu in this nakshatra. Now, Rahu does well in the sign of Uttara Ashadha. We've learned that Uttara Ashadha, part of its egoic difficulty is that it has a hard time balancing the narrative of being an evolutionary agent of divine will while still carrying a human ego. If you're going to be a divine agent of divine will, channeling the evolutionary agency of the divine intelligence of the universe, you still got a wife and kids, and you got to say, hey, honey, how was work? You know, you got to come back down, and when you're having a conversation with your wife or your husband, you have to be able to compromise. And you can't say, you know, I am a divine will agent of the universe. Say, honey, I know, are we going to the movies on Thursday or Friday? It's better for me if we go Thursday. I know it's better for you, but let's compromise here. You know, so having a regular human will, being an equal amongst your peers, being respected by your peers, but still pining for what you know in your soul is your capacity to apply yourself to superiority. This is important. Now with Rahu and Uttara Ashadha, what we read is that Uttara Ashadha is welcome when there's a subject to master, an opponent to conquer and subjugate, or a goal to attain. Whenever a leader is needed, Uttara Ashadha shines. So confident planets like Sun and Mars help Uttara Ashadha signify this leadership and the power to dominate and overcome. Saturn helps Uttara Ashadha endure long, arduous battles without giving up. Now, Rahu magnifies Uttara Ashadha's power and ambitiousness. And it's likely that throughout your whole life, even if you're, if you have Rahu and Uttara Ashadha, you've been wanting to be someone. You've been building this narrative of being someone who has some destiny to launch out and to be a conqueror, someone who is regarded as supreme amongst your fellow subjects and peers, who is really good at this one thing, and who wants to organize as a leader a group of people towards some thing. Now, as Rahu, you're going to take on that too heavily right away. You might go out and decide to be a pirate with a bunch of vagabonds and say, I want to be a pirate. And you go in this pirate ship and you bring all these people. You have the energy of being a leader and everyone's like, wow, cool. But then you get 15 days out at sea. You're all out of resources. The mutinies start to happen. And all of a sudden you're like, okay. So people are plotting to kill me. People are plotting to tie me up, hog tie me, put me in the basement, feed me salt, and, revert. I've been Mr. Superior on this ship for 15 days while everything was going well. And I've been organizing and directing everybody. And sometimes being a director, you kind of come off as a dick. You got to tell people, stop doing this and swab the deck. Someone needs to swab the deck. The person's like, fine, you're the leader, so whatever. But now it's 15 days out at sea and the mutiny occurs. And all of a sudden you find out that you're in for more than you bargained for as a leader. And all of these pirates are now happily playing out their fantasy of playing captain to the person who was once captain, because you've been forced and hogtied into a chair in the basement. So this is like a very metaphorical of Rahu in Uttara Ashadha. Especially at age 36, you've got Ketu in Punarvasu or Pushya, and you've been applying yourself to those unconscious spaces. Now you're coming out with Rahu and Uttara Ashadha, because at age 36, our north node tends to bloom because Saturn matures, and we are now beginning to fully experiment with our Rahu position. So you're coming out and trying to be Mr. Superior Leader. You've been wanting to do it for so long. Now you get an opportunity and a chance to, and you take on leadership in something, and you realize that there's a lot to it and that it's difficult. But overall, Rahu magnifies Uttara Ashadha's power and ambitiousness. Vic Dicara regards this as a positive indication, a positive position. So you bravely going out and being in this pirate ship and experiencing all the craziness of all these pirates, as long as you don't get killed out there, all of that stuff, the pain, the ego, the sharing of dignity while still being superior and acting as a superior commanding officer, but still treating your subjects as subject to your intelligence, but also as humans who have their own role, who have their own lives, who have their own wife and husband and kids at home. All of this is grist for the mill of your soul's desire to be regarded as an intelligent commanding officer. And you need to go through all this crap, this ego dimension of things, in order to be a channel for the divine will. And overall, the universe is supporting you in this regard. But it's going to be especially so if Rahu is not shaming anything, if it's not tied into any important planets in a difficult way, if it's Lord, wherever your Rahu is at this time in the universe, it's likely going to fall into Capricorn, which means if you have a very difficult Saturn, if it's got ill aspects, if it's got ugly Shadbala, if it's closer to the first house cusp, if it's being hit by its enemies, Saturn is not only important for as the Rahu Lord, if you're born at this time and Rahu falls into Capricorn, or if your Rahu is falling into the beginning of Aquarius as well, depending on what time in the universe you are watching this video. If Rahu is falling in the sign of Capricorn, then Saturn is Capricorn's lord, which means the narrative of developing the intelligence to pursue this leadership is going to depend on how well your Saturn is doing. If it's doing well, the cosmos is going to serve and give you easier opportunities. If Saturn's having a hard time, you're going to struggle with this even more. You're going to struggle to remain firm in following your Rahu in Uttara Ashadha destiny when you're in the basement and all of the cronies are torturing you in the basement of the pirate ship. It'll be hard for you to get through that, and it might cause a fear and anxiety whenever it comes to being a leader. But this is something you have to work through as someone with Rahu and Uttara Ashadha. Somewhere along the way, it's part of your destiny to lead and guide in this way. Now, if you have Ketu in the sign of Punarvasu, Punarvasu relates to the eternal rebecoming. It needs to make the old and dry, Vataha, fresh and new, Ardram. The eternal rebecoming is Punarvasu. So Vic does not give us any significations. Well, actually, what we read is that Ketu, let's see, Punarvasu is welcome where fresh enthusiasm for new ideas is welcome. But it's not welcome where long-term commitment and patient tenacity is needed. This makes things difficult because if you've got Ketu in Punarvasu, you're constantly wiggling, trying new things, being with the heartbeat of the moment. And your unconscious, you might find with Ketu and Punarvasu that you are always wiggling around and finding new identities, new long-term goals, new reasons to live. And all this newness you might find is an important part of who you are. But it can undermine the Rahu in Ashadha, which is trying to conquer long-range goals. So Punarvasu can keep you stuck in a repeating pattern of behavior that stops you from consciously committing to a long-range goal, which is what Rahu and Uttara Ashadha wants to do. Now the moon, the softer energies are bringing out the positivity of Punarvasu. Rahu and Ketu are more extreme than the moon and Mercury. They can bring a fresh renewal and interest into things, but they also indicate being easily bored and distracted and getting stuck in patterns. So Ketu in Punarvasu can get bored and stuck and never fully commit to what Uttara Ashadha needs to just grip, firmly commit, and smash itself and dedicate itself to a goal and go through all the difficulties involved with it to follow a goal through. Punarvasu will eventually, you'll learn, if you've got Ketu and Punarvasu, as the nodes mature, at age 48 especially is when Ketu matures, you're going to find that there's a reason that your soul has this wiggling, sidewinding energy. And it's a deep, true part of who you are. The Rahu in Uttara Ashadha is challenging you to apply yourself to long-range goals so that you can enjoy the wiggling of Punarvasu. Punarvasu is like a jazz musician who just likes to always, this is a new melody, a new melody, a new melody. And it's, always changing in all these different melodies. What is going to bring the greatest enjoyment of this ever-wiggling, uncatchable non-melody is doing a groove for a little bit. The jazz musicians will keep this groove, da 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 da, and then now the Ketu and Punarvasu is going to put all these different new melodies into that groove, and then eventually the Ketu and Punarvasu person is going to say, change it now, and then the jazz musicians are going to change, but they'll have a groove, and they're going to stick to that groove. It's the groove of Rahu and Uttara Ashadha, a long-range goal that feels delicious when you swerve into Punarvasu's change. If Ketu and Punarvasu is always changing, it's not going to enjoy it. There's a flat line, and there's a line, and then there's a circle. The line and the circle, the 0 and the 1, engage each other. They are what make the variety. that makes life have its spice and enjoyment. Ketu in Punarvasu needs that variety, and the variety is sticking to one thing, ironically. Punarvasu is already variety. It's multiplicitous infinite change. So variety for multiplicitous infinite change would be being stuck on a particular goal or pattern, a form that you dedicate to with edges, with a defined parameter. You play with that for a while, and then that's your variety. Then you go back to your original infinite variety nature, and it's like, it's good to be home. This is the narrative of Ketu and Punarvasu. I really like how I conveyed that. It's taking a long time, but it's okay. I'm fired up right now. Now for Ketu and Pushya, we have somebody who has Rahu and Uttara Ashadha. Ketu and Pushya has this narrative of somebody who is, for whom finding good advice, this is almost like someone who has, Ketu in the 9th house in a way. Brihaspati relates to Jupiter. So Pushya's whole thing is the success of Brihaspati, the master advisor, needs tongues for the aspirant. So to truly be subordinate to knowledge, you have to explore the tongues, the language, the true vibratory essence of all Sanskrit cosmic wisdom, which is Brihaspati, which is the Holy Spirit of the Gnostic Gospels, which is this sage energy. It's the vibration of ether. It's like we say with all the old ancient books, they're maktub, they're already written. It's the Arabic word, which means the vibrations of all knowledge already exist, and we're just blowing the dust off a book that's already been written. When you have Ketu in Pushya, you might find that you are somebody who has a clicking psychedelic intuition, who moves through a certain mastery of vibration with knowledge. And you have a sense of it, and you're probably good at dealing with it. But as Ketu always works, we mentioned Ketu is this pizza. It's this false pizza. So Ketu in Pushya is eating this false pizza, saying, yep, I'm a Sanskrit genius. I know language. I know the light codes. It comes to me intuitively. I don't even need to work on it. They're chewing on this pizza. And then a guru comes along, and that's like walking and smelling pizza. And you're like, oh no. If that's really pizza, then this crap I've been eating is going to devalidate what I've been my whole life. And it's going to be it's going to be an embarrassing ego shock to find that there is actually wisdom that a guru can move your egoic places of stuck patterns through. And it's a painful thing for Ketu and Pushya to deal with. Especially masculine strict planets tend to indicate the malfunction of being at odds with teachers and guides. So Ketu can have this malfunction of hesitating in following the true wisdom due to feeling insufficiently educated, underadvised, and ill-informed. At some ways, it's probably up to the age of 36, you feel like you don't need to go to a university and get some kind of higher education, or follow a guru, or follow some higher path of knowledge. Then around age 36, you're going to realize that I'm stuck in a loop of my limited frame of receiving universal knowledge, of receiving knowledge, of educating myself, of expanding my path. Now, around age 36, Rahu is going to come online. If you have Rahu and Uttara Ashadha, it shows that you need to have some kind of goals, some kind of strict set goals of trying to complete something, using your knowledge that you've gained in a set way towards set specific objectives. Because you've probably been in this mystical, nihilistic, nebulous web of moving through all this knowledge and vibration that you don't actually use. That's what Ketu and Pushya is, that it moves through all this knowledge but doesn't know how to grip it and how to use it. Now, if you have Rahu and Uttara Ashadha, having a long-term goal and pushing yourself to complete a long-term goal, to have ambition, to have Uttara Ashadha's power and ambitiousness, to complete things, to be regarded as a leader, to be accepted by a large group of people as being the one who staked a claim and pushed to complete it. This is going to give you a set form, and it's going to be embarrassing to get out of your Ketu. You had a all-encompassing receptivity to data and to knowledge, and now going into Rahu and Uttara Ashadha is going to force you to reckon with the fact that you haven't been doing anything with that knowledge, with that receptivity, with that guruship, with that apprenticeship, with all the knowledge you've gained. Now, Uttara Ashadha is going to force you to do something meaningful, materialistic with it, and ambitious with it, and to be a superior conqueror through it. And you're going to have to deal with the pirate ship energy of never having tried to be a leader or a conqueror, and using your knowledge practically in practical things that the world actually needs, to be a channel for the divine in specific situations. As you turn 48, you will realize that all of this stuff that you do through Uttara Ashadha, being a leader, being a pioneer, being an innovator, an initiator of some kind of group, some kind of movement that the world needs in specific situations, holding on to it, almost even feeling you're getting stuck on it. You might even feel like you lose the path of knowledge that you so desire. And that's what will happen around age 42, 43. You'll realize that you've gotten stuck on the form of Rahu and has neglected Brihaspati, which is the guruship, the true reception to knowledge. As you come into age 48, you'll realize that that's what Rahu was for. You'll use the forms that you've conquered, and that will guide you to an even deeper connection to Brihaspati, to Pushya, to the flowering, nurturing wisdom of a guru path, of an apprenticeship, of higher knowledge and education. And that's when your Ketu matures and it means something. So that is probably the best way for me to convey that. So be aware with Ketu in Pushya of arrogance when it comes to knowledge, but eventually to use your goals to be a reason to refine your knowledge. This is a long one. It's okay. No regrets. Thanks so much. If you enjoy what I do, check out dustincormier.com/subscribe. Subscribe to my email list. I'm going to be putting out a new astrology book soon, and also all sorts of courses on my website. Keep your eyes peeled for that. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed this.